Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 15 different PlayStation 2 games that I played recently. It's quite the mix here. We've got Disaster Report, Dragon Quest VIII, Playboy the Mansion, Steambot Chronicles, Britney's Dance Beat, The Cat in the Hat, Scarface, Red Ninja, Disney Extreme Skate Adventure, Unlimited Saga, Lord of the Rings Return of the King, Digimon World Data Squad, Silpheed the Lost Pawn, ESPN 2K5, and Max Payne. I kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a preview as to what we're going to be talking about here in just a bit. Before we get into that, though, I just wanted to say I upgraded my camera. Maybe you can or you can't tell. I did make a pretty good upgrade, and I think it's a really nice, like you could see when I hold up game boxes now, it will very quickly focus on text and stuff and then straight back to me. So I hope you guys enjoy the upgrade. I'm sure some people will want to know, so I will have a link that will show you the camera that I'm using in the description. But what do you say we jump right into it? These are PS2 games that I've played over the last 2 to 3 months, some as recent as like yesterday, and other ones a few months back, so I will have a little bit less to say about certain games more than others. Some I did beat, some I didn't beat, but I wanted to give you guys my impressions, just kind of talk about the games. So let's talk about the one that I actually just finished last night. I did my first ever playthrough of Disaster Report. I've never played a game from this series before, and I finally got around to playing it, and wow. This was a really awesome treat. This is a technical showpiece for the PS2. A lot of people may know this game for having really bad frame rate. It is true, but it does push the PS2 to its limits. Bridges swaying, bridges falling, buildings falling everywhere, just tons of environmental damage. I was very impressed by this, and I have to say that it definitely is a game that you appreciate more now than in the past. When this game came out, it was getting a lot of like fives and sixes in terms of reviews, and probably rightfully so for the time, because we didn't really know how good we had it in terms of this game's absolute pushing the PS2 to its limits. Reviews back then were a lot more harsh on things like bad controls, janky camera angles, yeah, the bad frame rate. It was a bit of a short game. It's meant to be something that's replayed, but games were kind of slammed for those kind of features back then, and now I really appreciate them. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this. If you're a fan of survival style games, or games that kind of try to mimic a like big Hollywood movie or something in terms of the set pieces and action, I was very pleasantly surprised by this. And it is definitely like up in that realm of somewhere in my top 30, maybe 40 PS2 games that I've ever played. I played a lot of PS2 games, so don't take that the wrong way. It's quite high recognition. The only one of the things I really didn't care for though is the lack of music. There's really not much music, and I get it in places you want to have that atmosphere of the sound effects and everything, but there were times where I really felt like a bit more music could have been used. But I was blown away by Disaster Report. Very solid 8 out of 10 kind of game. Definitely check it out if you haven't yet, and I look forward to playing Raw Danger. Now, this next one is pretty wild, and before I get into it, I should note how I play these PS2 games. How do I choose which ones I play? So on my Twitch streams, what I do is I have a giant roulette wheel of like 300 games, 95% of which I've never played before. Actually, you can see some of the games here. I kind of keep all the games that are on this wheel off to the side here. And on the day that we learned about Akira Toriyama's passing, the wheel actually landed on Dragon Quest VIII. If you don't know, it's done. The artwork in this game, the character designs are done by Toriyama, and it landed on Dragon Quest VIII. It was kind of trippy in a way. It was like it was meant to be. So of course we finished Dragon Quest VIII, and I say we finished because the way I play PS2 games is when the wheel lands on a game, my audience is in control of how long I play a game for. So if it's a game they really enjoy, like Dragon Quest VIII, we will finish it. And if not, we'll just kind of let the time expire and move on to the next game. It took me about 55 to 60 hours to finish Dragon Quest VIII. Now, I will say I have played Dragon Quest VIII before when it first came out, but I didn't beat it. I made it maybe about 35 40% of the way through the story in the game, and I finally came back to it after all these years, and I have to say, I think this game has aged wonderfully. The cel shaded graphics really hold up. The sense of exploration in this game is really what took me by surprise. I don't think I really appreciated this back when the game originally came out. But the way that you kind of explore the game world itself, there's a lot of dead ends, there's a lot of empty space. But in those moments where you do find a hidden chest or a hidden dungeon, or just like something off to the side, off the beaten path that you never really expected to be there, there's really a lot of magical moments like this in the game. And especially something else that I really fell in love with this second time around is just how well designed the towns are in this game. Every single town has its own unique identity and quirks and characteristics, and man, it just made exploring every nook and cranny that I can find in my playthrough. Now, I did stick to the main story. I didn't do too much side content, just to be clear, but it really made it a lot of fun to look around and appreciate the game design on Dragon Quest VIII that I think we really took for granted at the time. In my opinion, this is one of the last great traditional turn-based modern style RPGs that we got that started to really dwindle off once we got to the 360. We had like Lost Odyssey, games like Blue Dragon, stuff like that. But Dragon Quest VIII was really one of the last ones to carry that torch in terms of being a strictly traditional turn-based RPG with so many qualities that we come to expect from traditional older RPGs. The towns that have a church that you can save and heal in. You have the armor shop and the weapon shop and the item shop, and maybe you have like one or two houses of some NPCs. I mean, it's super traditional, and I really really appreciated it. The one thing though that I did come to realize that hasn't really aged the greatest about Dragon Quest VIII are metal slimes. It almost like it didn't ruin my playthrough, but when you realize how overpowered metal slimes are, it almost makes fighting anything else in this game trivial. What do I mean by that? Metal slimes exist in this game, right? It's a mechanic. It's there. Knowing that they're there makes it really hard to not want to fight them because of how much experience they give, and they give a lot of experience. The problem is they give too much experience too easily, and once you get the taste of the metal slime farming, it's really hard to go back and actually want to defeat normal enemies because the amount of gold and experience they give you is so negligible, and the encounters are like so difficult. It's like, why would you not farm metal slimes? So the issue that I ran into was that I just wanted to run from all the normal fights. I didn't want to do many normal fights unless I had to because I knew metal slime grinding existed. It didn't completely kill the game for me, but it did make normal encounters a bit more of a nuisance than anything. But I still really enjoyed it. I love the fact that I finally went back and was able to beat this game. Man, the boss battles in this are so awesome. I mean, it's essentially turned into a boss rush at times for me because we were just doing metal slime grinding and then doing bosses and stuff. But man, the music is just so good. The music makes this version of Dragon Quest VIII, and a lot of you might be like, have you ever played the 3DS version? No. And to be honest, I don't really have many plans to because the PS2 version is exactly what I want. The orchestral music just goes so well with this game, and the graphics look so much better on PS2 than they do on the 3DS, in my opinion. Of course, there's that extra content, but I don't want to go too long about Dragon Quest VIII, but I did kind of want to gush about it for a little bit and encourage those of you that maybe put it off in years past to return to it because I think you might be pleasantly surprised. All right, this next one, Playboy the Mansion. Some of you may not be aware of how this game works. You're probably like, how do you play a game about Playboy? It's actually a Sims-like game, but the thing is, it relies really heavily on the money management gimmick. So the whole, uh, sort of rotation in this game is that you have the mansion, you expand it like the Sims mansion by earning money, buying stuff, expanding the rooms, the walls, the decorations, people that you hire, and then you have to make magazines to make money. So what you do is you have to get a cover photo, you have to get a centerfold, you have to have articles, of course, right? Like everybody's favorite part, the articles, the essays, you got to get interviews, and then you kind of put together the magazine, and depending on how good the people are in terms of like their stardom, there's how good of a celebrity are they, their ratings will determine how much money you make. But then the money aspect comes in where you got to determine how much you're charging per issue, how many ad percents do you want in there. It's actually a really involved money management game, and those of you that actually like those really money heavy simulator games might actually enjoy this. Yes, it is rated M for mature, and it definitely earns the M rating. Like this game definitely was pushing the limits at the time for the PS2 when it comes to earning that M rating. And if you can believe it, the only things it's rated M for are nudity, strong sexual content, use of alcohol. That's it, 3 ratings, but it does earn those. I'll just say, like, it's probably not the kind of game you want to play around your kids, but it's hyper stylized. I mean, it's kind of a game of its era. You would never see anything like this today. It's a very bare bones game, though. I mean, it's once you've played it for a few hours, you've pretty much seen the whole game. It's there's like no character dialogue. It really encapsulates that whole Sims like dialogue where everybody's just making weird noises instead of speaking. So you really don't get to have any attachment or anything to the characters that are in your mansion because they're kind of just lifeless characters and they're all very similar to one another. But it does have celebrity characters. It's got licensed music. They kind of went pretty far in terms of getting interesting things in here for people at the time to keep them interested in the game beyond the obviously Playboy aesthetic. It does have a lot of loading on the PS2 version, and it is kind of clunky with the controls. It takes a while to get used to. Do I recommend it to simulator fans? Yeah, or people that are really curious as to how a Playboy game plays? Check it out. It's certainly interesting. All right, so Steambot Chronicles. This is a game that has gained a lot of notoriety over the years because, well, it has gone up in price, and I'm here to tell you to not like proceed with caution, but I think it's important to understand what Steambot Chronicles is before you get into it because it may be something that you're not anticipating. So I played this for the first time. I did beat it. I did the. I was originally doing a evil playthrough because it's one of those games where you can kind of like pick your side. You want to do an evil playthrough or a good character playthrough. I went with the evil playthrough, and thank goodness I kept an extra save because that was miserable. I highly, highly recommend you do not do evil playthrough on this if it's your first time playing. Definitely go with the good playthrough. But to encapsulate this game in a nutshell, it is essentially like a life sim mech building open world action RPG. I mean, music, rhythm, singing game. I mean, this game is crazy with the amount of genres that it kind of puts into one. I have to say the number one thing that really surprised me was I was not expecting this game to have music rhythm elements with really cringy singing that I actually really liked because it was just so cringe you couldn't help but love it. So yeah, there's like a musical band performance element to this game. The cel shaded graphics really hold up. I love cel shaded graphics. You guys know that, and the graphics do look really nice in this. But it is one of those games. One of my pet peeves with games are the ones that have no music for seemingly no reason. Now, for this game, it probably may have been due to disk space because there's so much they got going on here, especially with the musical songs. But there's a lot of emptiness in terms of there's no music playing. It's just sound effects. Just it felt very empty. And at times I really just felt like music would have added a lot more personality to the game. And that really did hold it back quite a bit. There's a lot of backtracking, there's a lot of side quests, and like a ton of tedious backtracking is one thing I'll say. Picking up a lot of materials and kind of like bringing them back to your base, and in order to kind of like bulk up your supplies to be able to make new attachments and stuff. I really just tried to stick to the main story and enjoy that for as much as I could. I didn't get too caught up in the minigame sort of options that this game offers. And I will say, if you are feeling burnt out on the backtracking in this game, I mean, this game has everything. It has dungeons that you can crawl through and find materials. Like it tries to be too many things at once. And I feel like for some people, that's one of the greatest strengths of this game. But for me, it was starting to be one of the biggest weaknesses because it felt like it was losing direction on what it wanted to kind of focus on and be as a game. Do I recommend it? I would definitely recommend it for people that are into experimental PS2 era action games. It's certainly, if you go into this blind like I did, not knowing really what to expect, I think you will come out really pleasantly surprised by some of the things it did. Some of the boss fights in here were absolutely stunning, giant boss fights, the kind of boss fights that slow down the frame rate to the point where you can't really even keep track of what's going on anymore. Like there's some big epic battles in here. And the story is really interesting, and I really appreciated the fact that there are tons of dialogue options in this game that were really hilarious at times, especially if you're trying to choose between good, neutral, or evil. I couldn't resist some of the evil dialogue choices in here. It was just way too funny. But in the end, I did kind of regret choosing them, and I went and fell back onto the good playthrough. So, also the story kept me on my toes. That's all I'll say. This game caught me off guard in one specific way that I don't want to mention because it would be a spoiler, but I'll just say I was not expecting it, so it was kind of cool. Anyway, check out Steambot Chronicles. Game's getting a little hard to get these days, though, so keep that in mind. All right, Britney's Dance Beat. So yes, this is on my roulette wheel. I put a lot of games that normally I would never play, more so for the entertainment value, the comedy of it. People love watching me play bad games. The one thing I was not expecting, though, with Britney's Dance Beat was to actually kind of like the game. Believe it or not, like, say what you will about the music. Music aside, this game is actually a very competent music rhythm game. They implement a lot of really interesting things that they do with the music notes, like having the music notes shift their position, like right before you're supposed to press the note. Music notes that fade in and out, like they do little glitches to try and trick you. I was not expecting that. I was expecting this to be very straightforward, very bare bones, which in a way it is. There's only 5 songs, and a couple of them have like no place in a music rhythm game. But I was not expecting this to be a playable, challenging, somewhat entertaining music rhythm game. Even, if you're not a fan of Britney Spears' music, you can't deny that this is actually a decently well made music rhythm game. So if you happen to be a Britney Spears fan and you like music rhythm games, or even if you're just a Britney Spears fan, you definitely need to play this game. But I will warn you, this game can be pretty challenging for music rhythm game newcomers. There's some mechanics in here that are going to really test your ability to do like rhythmic pressing. So if you're not the type of person that can do like constant taps, like rhythmic taps, it's not like Guitar Hero where they mix up the rhythm based on the music itself. Like you're always hitting notes constantly at a constant rhythm. That can be kind of difficult for you. Also, there's DVD extra stuff in here where you're like at a concert rehearsal and you can kind of like turn the camera around 360 degrees. There's some extra content on here that you might actually like. But anyway, we won't spend too much more time on Britney, but I did want to give it its fair, fair shake that it's actually a decent game. Something else that caught me off guard that I totally was not expecting. I'd go as far as to call this like the closest game that we've received to Klonoa 3 in quite some time, and this game is going to catch you off guard if you're unaware of what I'm about to mention here. If you know, you know. And that game is Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat. Wow. So this was recommended to me by Donovan. Shout outs to Donovan for putting this one on my, my wheel. And it's a side-scrolling platformer that borrows heavily from Klonoa 3. And it's like blatant how similar this is to Klonoa 3 in terms of the camera angles, the jumping, just the whole like aesthetic of this game lives and breathes Klonoa 2 specifically inspiration. So if you're a fan of Klonoa, I think you would definitely like to check this out just from the comedic value of just how similar this tries to be Klonoa. It's nowhere near as good. It's very tedious. There's a lot of tedious levels. Some really bad checkpoints at times. The puzzles are super uninspired. Like the game itself is not that great. And to prepare to play this, I had never seen the movie that this was based on with Mike Myers. So I did watch that. Man, that is a weird movie. Watching that movie does help give context to the game a little bit. Is it necessary? Definitely not. But man, that movie is really weird and sometimes in a good way. Like it's very surreal. We don't really see too many movies like that anymore. But anyway, if you see this for a few bucks, definitely check it out if you're a platformer fan. I also played for the first time Scarface: The World Is Yours. So this is, oftentimes it gets compared to, oh, it's a GTA clone. Okay, sure. It's an open world game. There's lots of crime and everything. And also, believe it or not, to prepare to see, I do my preparation. I had never watched Scarface before. Crazy, I know. So I actually did watch Scarface for the first time before playing this game. And I will say, if you have this game or you plan on playing this game, it is absolutely necessary to watch that movie before you play this game. Because this is a sort of like, some of you might be like, okay, so this is a sequel to the movie, but you might be like, okay, how does that work? It's an alternate reality, sort of like, what if at the end of the movie this doesn't happen and this happens instead? Okay, you get where I'm going here. And that's how the game takes place. It's what if he's able to just kind of continue his crime spree, and they make references to the movie. They make references to characters that died in the movie. Like, it's kind of cool if you're fresh off of watching the film, especially for the first time. It feels like you're playing the game. I mean, watch it. It feels like you're playing the movie. And I really appreciated that. This is by far the most vulgar. Nothing even comes close to me. This is the most vulgar game I've ever played. There's so much cursing and derogatory like remarks. I mean, this game is so over the top with earning the M rating, and boy does it earn. I mean, it's rated blood and gore, intense violence, sexual themes, strong language, use of drugs, and it earns every single one of those and then some. Like, this game is crazy over the top with earning the M rating. Let's just say you would once again never see a game like this made today. This would be censored up the wazoo if this was released in 2024. Crazy game. But the main thing that really kept this from being like a amazing 9 out of 10 kind of game for me was the whole gimmick of this game is you're supposed to earn money and keep earning money for your drug empire to buy more and more stuff for your mansion. Just grow your business, but it becomes so monotonous. There's so many repetitious quests. There's so many areas where it's like, okay, you need to earn like $10 million, but in order to do that, you're probably going to be doing hours and hours of repetitious mission grinding. The island, the open world itself is quite linear. It's almost like a circle. It's not like a full open world. They try to get around this by the fact that like the islands are connected mostly as a circle that you can kind of drive around, but then there's water that kind of connects and you can drive around the middle of the map in a boat, but the boat stuff doesn't feel the greatest. So open world aside not being the best, The game does have a very repetitious mission structure, but outside of that, man, was this game so much fun. Like the gunplay is super violent. Going into the, what do they call it? The balls mode. I forget if they, I think they have a specific name for it. But yeah, essentially you build up your balls. You get a lot of balls, right? Tony, he just like unleashes his balls, and that means you go into sort of like this bullet time slowdown mode where he just destroys everything. It's super fun, super violent. There's a lot of licensed music in here. A lot of great. It has the songs from the movie itself, and it has songs from 80s, 90s, 2000s. Like it's got all kinds of genres. There's kind of something for everybody in there, even though eventually it will get repetitive. And the game world itself looks awesome. I couldn't get over how smooth the frame rate was as you were driving around, going super super fast with everything that's popping up around you. The frame rate really rock solid, even in the PS2 version. I was very impressed by that. So, if you happen to be a fan of open world games and you somehow are a fan of Scarface and have not played this game, I'd say it's essential. Like, it's super good, especially if you're a Scarface fan. All right, this one is probably one of the ones I played longest ago, and that's Red Ninja End of Honor. So, I'll do my best to kind of remember my thoughts on my playthrough of this. Um, Caught off guard, I wasn't sure what to expect from this one, but the main gimmick and mechanic, this being an action ninja game, it does rely on stealth, but you can definitely approach this game very aggressively because the main gimmick here, the weapon, which I thought was super cool and a huge distinguishing factor with this game, is that the main character here uses a weapon that has a metal wire, and you can use this metal wire to like trap enemies and pull them together, cut them in half. Like it was so brutal. You could just like you kind of like rope the metal wire around them, and you can just cut the head off. You can cut the limbs off, the legs off, cut them. Super fun. So if you like ultra violent action games, especially from like the PS2 era, you owe it to yourself to check this out. But unfortunately, I did feel like some of the mission structures were not the best. The platforming in this game is not the best. It is by far carried by its combat and the metal wire gimmick. Everything else is kind of a very like 6 out of 10 kind of experience, amplified a bit by the combat. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to check it out. I made it close to the end of the game, but we ultimately did not end up finishing it. But I did play it for like a solid 8 hours or so, I think. Okay, Disney's Extreme Skate Adventure, another one that really took me off guard. The one thing I'll say about this game is be prepared to have some of the songs stuck in your head for probably the next couple weeks. There are some ridiculously catchy songs in this game, and a lot of them were made specifically for this game. I'll say if you have kids, this is probably a great game to play around your kids. They'll probably really enjoy it, and they'll probably really enjoy the music as well. They'll probably want to like listen to the music potentially like from YouTube or something. I think somebody uploaded the songs onto YouTube. But as a skate game itself, it's actually very it's developed by Neversoft, by the way. So it's actually a very competent skating game, and that's something that I was not expecting. So it does actually function as a playable kids skateboarding game. The levels themselves are very imaginative. The one that stands out to me the most is the Toy Story level. You're kind of going through Pizza Planet, and man, it's so well made. There's some really fun levels in here. Some more so than others, however. And you can get good at this. There's combos. You can like string together moves just like a Tony Hawk game. It's like Tony Hawk Light. It really is. So check it out if you happen to be a fan of Disney, older Disney movies, or Tony Hawk fan or skateboarding fan, whatever have you. And be prepared to have the music stuck in your head. All right, this is a trigger warning. Okay, some of you may be a little upset by the fact that this game has the original GameStop stickers on it. I do apologize. This is my original copy that I paid $12.99 for Unlimited SaGa. I know people hate these yellow stickers and stuff, but there's something I love about being able to preserve the original price. And heck, I think it even has the date on here. Let me see. Oh, maybe, no, maybe this one doesn't. Well, anyway, sometimes they have the date on there that you originally bought or they originally priced the game. So I did attempt to play Unlimited SaGa again, and to prepare for this, I watched a series on YouTube that was very helpful. Unfortunately I forget the name now off the top of my head, but if you just search YouTube for Unlimited SaGa, walkthrough or guide, you will find it, believe me. It's a couple of hours of watching things that the game and the manual don't explain to you. And once you watch that, you're ready to kind of try and play Unlimited Saga. And I have to say, I do have a newfound appreciation for this game. There's a lot of mechanics that are super, super in-depth and very different that have never really been attempted in other RPGs, especially on the PS2. The way that you equip your characters with skills and how they level up those skills with the board, it's really difficult to do if you don't properly prepare for this, and that's why most people hate Unlimited Saga. It's a very hard game to get into. Even after you do your preparation, the game is hard to get into. But it is something that I don't go into blindly. I prepared for it, and I have to say I still love the music, I still love the graphics. I think it's an awesome looking game. And the sort of the way that you move through this world is like a board game roguelike where you're just like tripping traps and having random chances to fail or succeed. They're not 100% skill based. There is a bit of randomness to them, so it kind of aggravates people where they feel like they're getting the timing. So, like, say you step on a trap and a reel pops up, and there's like a reel that spins, and one of the dots on the reel will be like, okay, you succeed in disarming the trap, and then all the other ones are failure. Even if you time it right to land on the one that succeeds in disarming, there is always a chance that it will purposefully make you miss the correct timing. So, like, this game can really infuriate people. And I understand. It's not a game for everybody. But I would say if you have never played Unlimited Saga before, definitely check it out, but prepare ahead of time. Watch those YouTube videos and see what you think of it. It's probably a game where you have about a 10 to 20% chance of liking it, and the rest of you are going to despise this game. But it's still pretty cheap. It's still easy to get a hold of, and I'd say it's worth the chance. On my revisit, I was able to play it for like another 5 or 6 hours, and ultimately people were like, we can't take watching this game anymore. It's not a good game to watch other people play, but it's a really good game to try and play yourself. Also, I played Return of the King for the first time since this came out. I have a lot of memories playing this when it first released. I played it online. Some of you may not know that this game had online multiplayer for the PS2, and it had voice chat and everything. I thought it was really cool to play this online co-op back in the day. Of course, now I'm just playing single player, and I have to say, this game oozes production value. It's actually amazing how much they crammed into this game to make it feel like you were playing Return of the King, the movie. The production values were just absolutely over the top. The music just smoothly fits right into this game. I mean, it's so epic the way the Lord of the Rings soundtrack fits in with this game, and the voice acting and the action scenes. And the one thing I'll say that really surprised me coming back to this is how hard this game is. We actually threw in the towel towards the end of the game on I think it was the final mission at the Black Gate. It was just ridiculously hard. So unless you spend the time to properly level up your characters and grind out some abilities and stats and moves and stuff, like if you rush to the end of this game, and I was not rushing, I was just kind of like progressing to the end without doing any unnecessary repetition of the same levels that I'd already done, you're gonna get your butt whooped in the end game here. This game has some really hard missions. Ultimately, I decided it's just not worth the time to go back and grind all the other levels. We moved on to another PS2 game, but still have a lot of respect for this game. One of the best license action games to ever release, as far as I'm concerned. All right, this is one that I sampled, and it's my first time ever playing a Digimon game, and I played Digimon World Data Squad. So this is a bit different from the normal Digimon World games, from what I understand. This game does have some really thick cell shading, very colorful game, thick black lines in the cell shading, which I do like. What really killed this for me, it kind of has the makings of being everything that I like. It's got turn-based battles, it looks great, the music's kind of catchy. The loading in this game is so bad. Every single battle is like probably 20 to 30 seconds worth of loading. Every attack you choose loads. Every time you get into and out of a battle, the loads are atrocious. Um, but it was still fun. If you're a fan of Digimon, you should check this out if you haven't played it yet. If you're a fan of turn-based RPGs, you should check it out. You don't have to know anything about Digimon. I barely know anything about Digimon. Also, this game has stickers. I don't know if my copy has stickers. Oh, it does. So just something to be aware of as you're hunting your copy of this. There's actually for you 100% completionists out there, there are stickers that do come with this game. It's still relatively cheap, not too hard to get a hold of. Check it out. If you think you've played all the turn-based RPGs out there on PS2, you probably haven't played Digimon yet. Okay, Silpheed the Lost Planet. This is one that it was a sampling. Played it for about an hour or so, and that's about all you probably need to play of this game. Unfortunately, we kind of decided, or my audience decided rather, hey, we're going to move on to something else. So I was able to see probably most of the game. It's a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. This is in the vertical genre. So it uses 3D graphics, 3D engine, so there's no sprite stuff here. Everything is fully rendered, and it was okay. I mean, it's a very middle of the road, not too hard, not too easy. It's like just the kind of perfect difficulty. The weapon system is a little uninspired. I do prefer my shoot 'em ups to have a weapon system where you can like freely change your weapons whenever you really want in the middle of a stage by like picking up weapon drops that kind of like float around, whatever have you. This game kind of locks you into really choosing your weapons at the start of a stage and sticking to them, and only having very, very rare occurrences where you can choose to swap your weapons. But if you don't know what's coming up, how do you know what weapons you want to swap to? The weapons are just okay. The game is all right. It takes a cinematic approach. There's a lot of sweeping and turning camera angles. So if you like shoot 'em ups that are not just a stationary camera that's always looking top down, but kind of like rotating, giving you sort of different slanted camera angles, isometric kind of stuff, you should check this one out, but don't expect to be blown away by it. The game is still somehow pretty cheap as well these days. It's not crazy expensive for a shoot 'em up from Working Designs. All right, this one might surprise you, but I also do put sports games on my wheel because normally I don't play sports games, and people like watching me suffer playing these games, and suffer did I ever when I played ESPN NFL 2K5. Now, some of you may recall my last PS2 video where I talked about playing NFL Blitz, which was actually I mean, not NFL Blitz, NFL Blitz the League, was it on PS2? That one was actually kind of fun because it's arcadey, it's a bit over the top. There's injuries, there's all kinds of weird stuff that you can do in that game that you can't do in normal sports or football games. This one here, everybody was like, this is one of the best football games of all time. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is going to be, all right, I'm ready. It's one of the best football games of all time if you like football. If you're like me, you don't care about football, you don't play football games, this game expects you to know what to do. It doesn't cater to people like me, obviously, because if you're playing and buying a football game, you're probably a football fan. So if you're like, you know what, I want to try a football game, let's go with one of the most recommended ones. Don't go with this one. I recommend you play something like I played, like the League or one of the Blitz games or something, because this game it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you what plays you're doing, it's just way too difficult. I got my butt handed to me in this game. At least in League, I was actually winning games and stuff. This was just torture. And that's all I've got to say. Torturous. And lastly, here we've got Max Payne. I'm not going to say too much about this one because I'm actually going to direct you guys to a video that will pop up here where I actually did a full review on Max Payne because it was my first time playing Max Payne ever, and I felt compelled enough to do an entire video talking about my first playthrough of Max Payne. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure to check it out up here. And guys, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and I'm going to keep playing more PS2, so look forward to the next PS2 impressions and review video that will be coming out. And once again, if you enjoy the content, consider joining and becoming a member on my channel as well, which has all various kinds of perks and things that kind of give you behind the scenes vlogs and sometimes early video releases, fun stuff like that. Thank you for your support, guys. I do appreciate all the members that have joined. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.